Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the massive observation window of the International Space Station's new xenobiology lab, watching the approaching Nexaran ship with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. The crystalline vessel caught the sun's rays, fracturing them into rainbow patterns across the station's hull. 3 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the crystalline species, and still, their true intentions remained as opaque as their translucent bodies. "They're early," Commander James Rodriguez noted beside her, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. The diplomatic meeting wasn't scheduled for another 6 hours. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the geometric patterns flowing across the alien vessel's surface. As Earth's leading expert in crystalline-based life forms, she'd spent countless hours studying the footage from first contact. The Nexaran's bodies were marvels of silicon-based evolution, their crystalline forms capable of transmitting thoughts and emotions through complex harmonic frequencies. The ship's approach was different this time. The usual graceful oscillation of their crystal hull was replaced by sharp, aggressive angles. Sarah's hand unconsciously moved to the small device in her lab coat pocket, a prototype sonic analyzer she'd developed to study Nexaran communication patterns. "Something's wrong," she murmured, pulling out the device. The readings made her blood run cold. "These harmonics, they're not here for diplomacy." The ship stopped precisely 1 kilometer from the station. In that moment, every screen and holographic display in the station flickered to life, revealing the faceted face of High Resonator Vixval, the Nexaran leader. Their crystalline features were arranged in what Sarah had learned to recognize as their version of cold fury. "Humans of Earth," the alien's voice resonated through the station's speakers, creating harmonic overtones that made Sarah's teeth ache. "Your species has been found wanting. You possess biological resources crucial to the expansion of the Nexaran Empire, yet you squander them on individual pursuits rather than collective growth. We offered fair trade, yet you refuse to submit to reasonable harvesting quotas." Commander Rodriguez stepped forward, his jaw set. "Those quotas would have meant the death of millions. We explained this in our last." Silence. The word sent crystalline vibrations through the station's structure. "Your explanations are irrelevant. The Nexaran Empire has made its decision. You have 2 standard rotations to surrender Earth's biological resources for proper allocation, or we will take them by force. Your primitive defenses cannot hope to match our crystalline fleet." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the station in eerie silence. Sarah's analyzer was still recording, its display showing complex waveform patterns she'd never seen before. "How many ships do they have?" she asked quietly, her mind racing through possibilities. Latest deep space scans showed over 3,000 vessels gathering at the edge of the solar system. Rodriguez replied grimly, "Each one capable of reducing a city to ash with their harmonic weapons." Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the readouts. "But that's not what they'll do first, is it? Their entire society is built on harmony, controlled frequencies that keep their hive mind stable. They'll try to integrate Earth into their network before they destroy it." She turned to Rodriguez, a dangerous idea forming. "Commander, I need to speak with the Defense Council immediately. I think I know why they're so confident, and how we can use it against them." Rodriguez studied her for a moment before nodding. "The quantum comm link to Earth is secure. What are you thinking, Doctor?" Sarah's fingers tightened around her analyzer. "The Nexarans expect us to respond with either surrender or defiance. Their entire strategy, their very biology, depends on predictable harmonic responses. But what if we gave them something else entirely?" "What do you mean?" "Their crystalline forms aren't just their bodies. They're the foundation of their consciousness, their society, their technology. Everything there depends on precise frequencies, on patterns, on—" She paused, a slight smile forming. "On predictable resonance." Understanding dawned in Rodriguez's eyes. "And if those patterns were disrupted?" "Not disrupted," Sarah corrected, already moving toward the quantum comm station. "Silenced." Commander, I need you to get me every scrap of data we have on Nexaran ship movements, every recording of their communications, every analysis of their crystal structures. We have 48 hours to teach humanity how to wage war with silence. As she began composing her message to Earth's defense leaders, Sarah glanced one more time at the Nexaran ship. Its crystalline surface still pulsed with threatening harmonics, but now she saw something else in those patterns. Fear, not of Earth's weapons or defenses, but of the one thing their harmonically dependent society couldn't comprehend: absolute silence. The war would begin not with a bang, but with the deadly quiet of humanity's calculated response. And in that silence, Sarah knew, the mighty Nexaran Empire would face an enemy unlike any they had encountered in their harmonious expansion across the stars. The Quantum Defense Center beneath Mount Cheyenne hummed with nervous energy as Dr. Sarah Chen presented her findings to Earth's combined military leadership. Three-dimensional holograms of Nexaran crystal structures rotated above the conference table, their lattice patterns casting strange shadows across concerned faces. Their entire civilization is built on harmonic resonance, Sarah explained, manipulating the display to zoom in on a particular crystalline formation. Their ships, their weapons, even their consciousness, it all depends on precisely controlled frequencies. But that's not just their strength, it's their fundamental weakness. General Diana Martinez leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Explain how this helps us against 3,000 warships, Doctor. Sarah gestured, and the hologram shifted to show wave patterns recorded from Nexaran communications. They expect resistance, either conventional warfare or immediate surrender. Their battle strategies, their entire military doctrine, is based on predictable responses. But their crystalline nature makes them extremely sensitive to harmonic disruption. We've already considered sonic weapons, Admiral Chen interrupted. Our calculations show we'd need massive arrays to generate enough power to. No, not disruption. Sarah corrected, a slight smile forming. Silence. Complete harmonic nullification. Their crystalline structures can't process the absence of resonance. It's like sensory deprivation for them, but on a fundamental level. The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. Sarah continued, bringing up new diagrams. I've been working with Dr. Marcus Wong in quantum acoustics. We've developed a network of quantum-linked resonance nullifiers. When activated, they create zones of perfect harmonic silence. No vibrations, no frequencies, nothing for their crystalline technology to detect or interact with. Dr. Wong stepped forward, his usually reserved demeanor energized. We've already begun manufacturing the nullifiers using automated facilities on the far side of the moon. The Nexarans won't detect them because they're looking for active energy signatures, not their absence. And you're certain this will affect their ships? General Martinez asked, studying the technical specifications. We tested it on samples from their diplomatic vessel. Sarah confirmed. Even brief exposure to harmonic nullification causes their crystal matrices to become unstable. Extended exposure. She paused, bringing up footage of a small Nexaran crystal dissolving into inert dust, has more permanent effects. Admiral Chen's expression remained skeptical. They'll detect the nullifiers as soon as they're deployed. No, Dr. Wong interjected. That's the beauty of it. The nullifiers don't emit energy, they absorb it. To the Nexaran sensors, these zones will appear as nothing more than empty space, and we're placing them in a very specific pattern. Sarah took over, displaying a map of the solar system with overlaid geometric designs. We're creating a tactical web. When the Nexaran fleet enters our system, they'll find corridors of normal space surrounded by zones of absolute silence. They'll be forced to follow the paths we've laid out for them, never realizing they're being herded into positions of our choosing. And then, General Martinez prompted. Then we implement Phase 2, Sarah replied, bringing up new schematics. While they're concentrated in these corridors, we activate our quantum resonance inverters. Instead of nullifying harmonics, these devices will reflect the Nexaran's own frequencies back at them, but slightly out of phase. Their ship's crystal matrices will begin to destabilize, their communication networks will fragment, and their hive mind will start to break down. The room erupted in technical questions and strategic discussions. Sarah answered each one, her confidence growing as she saw understanding and hope replace doubt in the leader's eyes. They had 36 hours until the Nexarin's deadline, and every minute would count. As the meeting concluded, General Martinez pulled Sarah aside. "Doctor, if this works, we won't just be defending Earth. We'll be fundamentally changing their society, their hive mind, their very way of life." Sarah nodded solemnly. "Yes, by breaking their harmonic connections, we'll be forcing individuality upon them. It's not just a military strategy, it's cultural revolution through physics." But they gave us no choice. They came to change our world. They never considered we might change theirs. High above, in the void of space, the first nullifiers were already being positioned by stealth drones. Their quantum-linked networks spread like an invisible web through the solar system, waiting to teach the mighty Nexarin Empire about the power of silence. In her private lab, Sarah studied the final simulations, watching virtual crystal structures collapse under the influence of their defensive grid. The Nexarins had evolved in a universe of constant harmonics, never imagining that the absence of resonance could be wielded as a weapon. They were about to learn that sometimes the deadliest force isn't the loudest voice, but the one that refuses to speak at all. Fleet Commander Zixtar's crystalline form vibrated with growing unease as they studied the tactical displays aboard the Nexarin flagship. The massive invasion fleet had entered the solar system exactly as planned, yet something felt wrong. The harmonic frequencies that typically flowed through their neural network were becoming strange. "Status report," they commanded, their crystalline resonance carrying across the bridge. Sub-Commander Kraltex's form flickered with uncertainty. "The human defense systems remain inactive, Commander. No weapons detected, no shield signatures, no fleet movements." But they hesitated, their crystal lattice showing stress patterns. "Speak freely. We're detecting zones of nothing. Spaces where our harmonic sensors show complete emptiness, not just absence of matter, but absence of resonance itself." In the Quantum Defense Center on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the Nexarin fleet's movements with intense concentration. Holographic displays showed the massive armada unconsciously following the paths laid out by their nullifier network. "They're starting to notice," Dr. Wong observed, monitoring the quantum-linked sensors. "Their formation is becoming erratic." Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "They can feel the silence, like deep-sea creatures sensing pressure changes before a storm." Initiate Phase 2. Across the solar system, carefully hidden quantum resonance inverters awakened. They didn't broadcast energy. Instead, they began reflecting the Nexarin's own harmonic frequencies back at them, shifted precisely out of phase. Aboard the Nexarin flagship, Zixtar's command was interrupted by a sharp crystalline screech. Around them, bridge officers clutched their crystalline forms as foreign sensations rippled through the fleet's hive mind. Multiple ships reporting harmonic disturbances, Kraltex announced, their voice creating discordant patterns. "The void. It's wrong. Our frequencies are coming back to us changed." Zixtar attempted to access the fleet's collective consciousness, only to find the usually crystal-clear network clouded with confusion and growing fear. For the first time in their existence, they felt alone. In the Defense Center, Sarah monitored the cascade of effects spreading through the Nexarin fleet. "Their hive mind is starting to fragment," she reported. "Individual ships are losing their harmonic synchronization." General Martinez studied the tactical display. "They're breaking formation. Some vessels are attempting to retreat, others are pushing forward. Their command structure is dissolving." The space around Earth had become a psychological battlefield. Nexarin ships wandered into nullification zones, their crews experiencing terrifying moments of complete sensory isolation before desperately fleeing back to areas where they could at least feel their own resonance. distorted though it was by the inverters. "Commander, Kraltex's crystalline form was showing visible fracture lines now. We're receiving individual thoughts from the fleet. Unseated, uncontrolled thoughts. The harmony is breaking down." Zixtar felt it too. Discordant fragments of consciousness seeping through their neural network. Where once there was the comforting resonance of unified purpose, now there was a cacophony of individual fears, doubts, and questions. Most terrifying of all were the spaces of absolute silence, growing like dark holes in their collective awareness. Sarah watched as the mighty invasion fleet began to disintegrate. Ships clustered together in tight groups, seeking reassurance in their own resonance, while others drifted aimlessly, their crews struggling with their first experience of individual consciousness. "We should press our advantage," Admiral Chen suggested. "While they're disorganized." "No," Sarah interrupted. "We wait. Let them experience the silence. Let them feel what it means to be individuals. Their greatest weapon was their unity. Now they're facing something far more terrifying than any defense we could have mounted." On the flagship's bridge, Zixtar made a desperate decision. "All ships, fall back. Retreat tow." They stopped, realizing with horror that they could no longer feel the fleet's collective acknowledgement of their orders. Each ship, each crew member would have to decide for themselves whether to obey. The invasion force that had entered the solar system as a perfect crystalline orchestra was dissolving into a chaos of soloists, each suddenly forced to play their own tune. Some ships fled immediately, while others hung paralyzed in space, their crews overwhelmed by their first taste of individual existence. In the defense center, Sarah watched the unfolding scene with a mixture of scientific fascination and empathy. "They never imagined this kind of warfare," she said softly. "They prepared for violence, for resistance, for anything but the gift of enforced individuality." The quantum sensors showed the Nexaran fleet continuing to fragment, their once perfect formation now a scattered array of confused vessels. Earth had defended itself not with destruction, but with transformation, turning the very nature of their enemy's consciousness against them. The first battle for Earth would be won not with a single shot fired, but with the powerful weapon of silence and the terrifying gift of independent thought. High Resonator Vixthal's crystalline form trembled as unprecedented sensations coursed through their neural lattice. From their command center in the Empire's capital ship, they watched their invasion fleet dissolving into chaos. But worse than the tactical failure was the spreading psychological contamination. Individual thoughts, forbidden, dangerous things, were beginning to crystallize within their collective consciousness. Status of the hive mind network, they demanded, their usually harmonious voice creating discordant patterns. The response came not in the traditional unified resonance, but as scattered individual reports, each tinged with something the Nexarans had never experienced before: personal fear. In the Earth's Quantum Defense Center, Dr. Sarah Chen and her team monitored the unprecedented transformation. "The fracturing is spreading beyond their fleet," she reported, studying the quantum readings. "Their entire command structure is experiencing cascading individualization." Dr. Wong pointed to a particular set of readings. "The harmonic isolation is affecting their crystalline biology at a fundamental level. Their neural pathways are being forced to develop independent processing patterns." Aboard the Nexaran capital ship, Vixthal experienced something entirely alien, a thought that was uniquely their own. The sensation was terrifying, exhilarating, and somehow deeply wrong. Around them, other command staff were experiencing similar awakenings, their crystalline forms displaying colors and patterns never before seen in their species. High Resonator, a junior officer named Mixtel, approached, their crystal structure showing chaotic rainbow patterns. I think I disagree with the invasion directive." The word sent shockwaves through the command center. Disagreement was impossible in a properly functioning hive mind. Yet instead of immediately suppressing this deviance, Vixthal found themselves considering the officer's words with, was this curiosity? On Earth, Sarah's team detected the spreading change. The quantum resonance inverters are working better than we anticipated, she told General Martinez. The enforced silence isn't just breaking their communication, it's forcing their neural crystals to develop independent processing nodes. You mean they're growing individual brains? Martinez asked, fascinated. More like their existing crystalline networks are being repatterned for independent thought. They're experiencing true consciousness for the first time in their species' history. The effect spread through the Nexaran fleet like a crystal fracture. Ships began broadcasting individual messages rather than harmonic consensus. Some crews reported experiencing memory differentiation, recalling events from personal perspectives rather than the collective archive. Vixthul watched their mighty invasion force transforming into something unprecedented. Attack formations dissolved not through tactical failure, but because individual ships were choosing different paths. Some vessels maintained their hostile stance toward Earth, while others retreated to process their new consciousness. Most disturbing were those that simply waited, their crews engaged in the entirely new experience of individual debate. We're detecting massive power fluctuations in their capital ship, Dr. Wong reported, studying the sensor feeds. Their crystalline matrix is undergoing some kind of fundamental reorganization. Sarah understood immediately. Their leadership is experiencing the change more intensely because they were more deeply connected to the hive mind. Their entire concept of authority was based on harmonic resonance. Now they're having to grapple with genuine individual authority. In the capital ship's command center, Vixthul made a decision that was, for the first time, truly their own. All ships, they'd broadcast, their message carrying not harmonic compulsion, but actual words, hold position. I need time to understand what we are becoming. The response was unprecedented. Some ships obeyed, others didn't, and most remarkably, many responded with questions. Actual individual inquiries about the nature of their transformation. The invasion force had become an improvised community of awakening minds. Dr. Chen watched the unfolding scene with a mixture of scientific awe and deep empathy. We should send them a message, she suggested to General Martinez. Not a demand or threat, but an offer of guidance. They're experiencing something more overwhelming than any military defeat, the birth of individual consciousness. Martinez nodded, understanding the historical gravity of the moment. We're not just preventing an invasion, we're midwifing the rebirth of an entire civilization. Sarah began composing the message, choosing her words carefully. The Nexarans had come to Earth expecting either victory or defeat. Instead, they were experiencing transformation. Their hive mind was breaking not into chaos, but into a million points of individual light, each one a new consciousness experiencing the universe through unique crystalline eyes. The war for Earth would be won not through destruction, but through the most powerful force in the universe, the awakening of true consciousness. The silence that humanity had wielded as a weapon had become something far more profound, the quiet space in which individual thoughts could finally crystallize and grow. 3 months after the failed invasion, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in a newly constructed chamber aboard the International Space Station, watching a remarkable scene unfold. The room's quantum harmonics had been carefully calibrated to allow for both individual thought and collective resonance, a bridge between two forms of consciousness. Before her, high resonator Vixthul's crystalline form displayed patterns she'd never seen before, swirls of independent thought interweaving with the remaining streams of collective consciousness. They were no longer simply a node in the hive mind, but neither were they fully individual. They had become something new. We never knew, Vixthul said, their voice carrying both harmonic resonance and personal inflection. We thought we understood consciousness, thought we had achieved the perfect form of existence through our collective harmony. We were blind to the universe of experience that existed in silence. Sarah nodded, monitoring the quantum readings that showed the ongoing evolution of Nexaran neural patterns. Forced uniformity of thought, no matter how harmonious, can never match the creative power of diverse perspectives working together. In the 3 months since the aborted invasion, The Nexaran Empire had undergone a transformation more profound than any military defeat could have caused. The enforced silence had cracked their hive mind into millions of awakening individuals, each experiencing the universe through unique crystalline eyes. Our society is challenging to govern now, Vixthal admitted, their crystal structure showing complex interference patterns. Individual thoughts lead to individual desires, to disagreements, to chaos, to growth, Sarah corrected gently. What you're experiencing isn't chaos, it's the natural complexity of true consciousness. The quantum displays showed the ongoing changes in Nexaran society. Their ships, once perfect crystalline uniforms, now displayed unique patterns reflecting their crews' individual thoughts. Their cities, formerly arranged in rigid harmonic grids, were being rebuilt to accommodate the need for both private contemplation and collective resonance. Some among us wish to return to pure collective consciousness, Vixthal said. They fear what we're becoming. Others, their form shimmed with new colors, others are exploring the full spectrum of individual existence. And many, like myself, are seeking a balance between the two. Sarah gestured to the laboratory's central display, where data streamed from ongoing cultural exchanges. That's why we're here. Earth can help you navigate this transition. We've spent our entire history balancing individual identity with collective action. It's not always harmonious, but it's incredibly powerful. The display showed footage from the first Nexaran Arts Festival, crystalline beings creating unique harmonic patterns, sharing individual interpretations of collective experiences. What had begun as a weapon of last resort had evolved into a cultural renaissance. The silence taught us something profound. Vixthal mused, their form refracting light in contemplative patterns. In the space between harmonics, in the quiet moments between thoughts, we found ourselves, not as extensions of the collective, but as unique vertices of consciousness. Sarah's quantum sensors recorded the complex interplay of frequencies as Vixthal spoke, individual thought patterns harmonizing with, but not subsumed by, the remaining threads of collective consciousness. You're creating a new form of existence, she said, not hive, not individual, but a true symphony of distinct voices. In the space beyond the station, a Nexaran ship demonstrated the new reality. Its crystalline surface rippled with both coordinated patterns and individual expressions, unity and diversity in perfect balance. The crew chose to work together not through forced harmonic resonance, but through conscious individual decision. We came to Earth seeking resources to expand our empire, Vixthal said, their voice carrying notes of wonder. Instead, you gave us something far more precious, the gift of self-awareness. The silence that we feared became the space in which we could finally hear our own thoughts. Sarah smiled, watching the quantum readings stabilize into new, more complex patterns. And now we can learn from each other. Your society is proving that consciousness exists on a spectrum, from individual to collective. Understanding that spectrum could revolutionize our understanding of existence itself. The chamber's carefully calibrated harmonics hummed with possibility as human and Nexaran contemplated their shared future. The invasion that might have ended in destruction had instead sparked an evolutionary leap. The silence that humanity had wielded as a defense had become the foundation of something unprecedented. A civilization balancing the power of collective harmony with the infinite potential of individual thought. In the void of space, Earth and the transformed Nexaran fleet orbited the sun together. Their ships no longer projected uniformity, but displayed an ever-changing array of crystalline patterns, a visual symphony of unity and diversity, of collective purpose and individual expression. They had come seeking conquest and found transformation instead, learning that the most profound victories come not from domination, but from the courage to evolve. The war that never was had ended not with surrender or triumph, but with transcendence. In the quantum spaces between harmony and silence, between collective and individual, between what was and what could be, a new form of consciousness had crystallized, one that would change both species forever.